This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers. You can always send an email, studio@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to past shows. You can find out what we've done in the past, what we're doing now, and where we hope to be going in the future, just by going to www.xzoneradiotv.com. People ask me, Rob, why do you tell everybody at the beginning of the segment, who you are? You've already said it. Well, the reason is that, as we move the show through the different time zones around the world, certain affiliates and certain networks only pick us up at the top of that hour. So that's why we do it as a common courtesy to all our listeners. Cyndi Dale is my guest. She is the author of 2 books, The Little Book of Chakras and Subtle Energy Techniques. And she is an internationally renowned author, speaker, healer, and business consultant. Her book to date includes the bestseller, The Subtle Body, an Encyclopedia of Your Energetic Anatomy, and the winner of 4 international recognized publisher awards, as well as over 20 internationally acclaimed books. So joining us now to talk about, chakras and subtle energies is Cyndi Dale. And Cyndi, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about in that whole world of subtle energy.
Yeah, well, first of all, what is subtle energy?
Let me talk about what energy is first.
Okay.
I have a very short sentence that explains it. Energy is just information that moves. That's it. Science has proven that absolutely everything is what it is because there's information that tells it what to be. Just like how we raise our kids, like this is what you're going to be and hope that it works. And it moves. Everything in reality moves constantly. Subtle energy versus physical energy is the more invisible and immeasurable energy. And, that continuum, Rob, changes over time, to be honest. So what we've considered to be, kind of physical energy today might have been subtle energy 10 years ago. And what we think is invisible or immeasurable right now, every single day science is learning how to better measure that which we can't see with our eyes or hear with our ears.
Can you give us an example of subtle energy?
Absolutely. Subtle energy is our thoughts.
Okay.
You're thinking right now, but I can't hear what you're thinking. Or how about our feelings?
Okay.
We know our feelings are made out of, chemicals in the body that
Right.
have to do with neuropeptides and this and that and the other thing. But we can't see the feelings. We can't measure them. We can't hold them, but we know that they exist. So those are the two things that we take for granted, that are really subtle energy. They're communicated person to person. I have a good friend who said once that the most communicable disease in the world is depression, because you can catch it just talking to somebody on the phone when they're depressed.
Isn't
So
that the
that's
truth?
a little
Yeah.
how subtle energy works. It passes around.
And I guess another example of subtle energy would be love.
Yes, that's, we can see the product.
Yeah.
We certainly know when we don't feel it, but we know when we do feel it and when it's there. And, there's that old phrase, love is what makes the world go round. Well, how do we know that? Because we know it. And even knowledge is a form of subtle energy, or awareness, or intuition, or psychic data, and all that stuff that opens up the mystical doors.
You and I have to take a very short break. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you more about subtle energies. I want to get into the chakras because, like you said, energy is all around us. And love does make the world go round now, doesn't it? Exonation, my guest this hour is Cyndi Dale. And for more information on Cyndi, her website is www.cindydale.com. That's www.cindydale.com. And Cyndi is the author of, just two of the books that we're going to be talking tonight about that Cyndi has written. The Little Book of Chakras and Subtle Energy Techniques. I am Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. Now, a quick promo for our good friends at CubeSat. If you would like to be part of UFO history, if you would like to be part of the satellite watching group that is gathering around the world to watch the images coming from CubeSat that will be launched in the Mojave Desert this coming summer, with just one mission, to look for UFOs, visit www.cubesat.tech. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Exonation, Cyndi Dale is our special guest this hour. And Cyndi, let me ask you this. Is there a one-size-fits-all technique to working with subtle energy safely?
Well, I think so. And it's such an easy technique, I'm usually embarrassed to teach it because it literally takes 1 second and is a one-size-fits-all technique.
Wow.
And the core behind the technique, the core idea is that essentially we are each a spirit. We are an essence.
Right.
We are, here for experience, but we're already, kind of divine. And it's recognizing the same is true of all others, whether they be animals or plants or people, or you could say mountains or rivers, and that there's some kind of greater spirit, however people define that. So the technique that literally I woke up one morning being shown by what I would call my spiritual guides is really affirming the three most important aspects, of essence. So if I were going to, be working with you, if you were a client of mine, or if I were going to go to the bank and I wanted a great experience, or I want to set goals for the day, whatever it is, I first affirm my spirit, that essential part of me, and I'm really giving it permission to take over and be in charge. I affirm the other person's spirit, or a class's, spirits, or if I'm alone, the spiritual helpers. And that is also stating I only want the best of them showing up. And then I literally surrender to what I would call the greater spirit or the Holy Spirit. And that's really the most important part of this process, because at that point I'm kind of, as Christianity says, there's less of me and more of that which is great and that which is good and that which is love, which I have now put in charge of myself, of a situation, of an interaction, of a meditation, of a prayer, of a healing, or just of my drive to work that day. And that one technique, I teach it to any class that I teach, and any individual who wants to, kind of learn, the most basic assumptive of techniques. And they always call me back or return to class and say, it's amazing, it works. I taught it to a massage therapist one time who was picking up other people's energy, and if you do this, you know what it's like. You sit down with somebody and you end up with them. You feel like them at the end of your time with them. And that's a real tough, challenge for caregivers or people who are, kind of helping other people, because we care, so we take things on and we take them in. She came back, and said to me, I have been having my clients leap off the table. They feel so fantastic. She says the best thing is I feel good at the end of every session. I have energy at the end of each session. I'm not going home anymore feeling like a soggy noodle. So it really is a technique you can use for anything. I have a client who's very clairvoyant but doesn't want to be in the way that he is, meaning he always sees bad catastrophes that he can't stop. And so I said, do this. Get up in the morning, do spirit to spirit, and ask that greater spirit to only send you images if they're positive or if they're important or if there's something you can do about them if they are negative. Completely changed his life. In the last 3 months, he's had one so-called negative image. And you know what? It was just kind of a traffic snarl. So he went a different way to work that particular day and avoided the traffic snarl. So, it was useful for him. So I encourage people to use it for any reason.
How can this technique help the children of today? Because they face more challenges than you and I did growing up. And your son was a great example of that. How he turned the field. I'll just use this whole saying. You take a lemon, you turn it into lemonade, because he succeeded. He had a problem, and he decided that he wanted to get it fixed, and he went the 10 yards to get it fixed, and he's on his road to success. So how do we teach children in school in early ages to use this technique? Because the children of today are the leaders of tomorrow.
They are, and they're very special. It actually reminds me, I go to a lot of baseball games for obvious reasons. And I was talking to an older gentleman. He must have been in his 80s. And he said, the shame is that we're not doing enough for the kids. He said, because they're the ones who own the earth right now. And this is just a perfectly normal guy, who made his living as a plumber, and he understands what's really important. And, I unfortunately think in most schools, something like this is not going to get taught because it's going to be seen as religious or weird or yogi-like or, have some label on it. So I think typically it's going to take a parent, or a relative, or another kid to teach a kid. But I'll tell you, a lot of the kids are helping each other with these kind of ideas. My son, in his last year of completely reforming his pitching, worked with myself, but he also worked with an energy worker who is a baseball coach at the same time. And he would literally stop Gabe and say, breathe into your body, what feeling is stuck there? Or what aren't you letting go of? Or, what does your spirit want you to know? Or what is he used the word God. What does God really want you to feel like when you're standing on that mound? And so I think there's ways that anybody interacting with a kid can make an impact and a difference just by asking a child, I trust you. You know the answers in your heart. What is your heart saying? So I think there's ways we can take this technique if we can't formally introduce it to a young one and ask questions of them in such a way that says, you are an immortal essence and you do know your answer. How do you know your answers, and how can you bring those out and respect them? I think that works. When both my boys were younger, I would do things with them like, when they woke up and said, I think I'm too sick to go to school. I would say, feel into your body. I want you to feel like if you're going to go to school, does your energy go up or does it go down? And, more often than not, they would say, going to school makes my energy go up. I guess I'm supposed to go to school. And they made their own decisions with that. And 95% of the time, if I just helped them get in touch with their essence, they could read it and do the right thing.
We speak about religion, and how does one's religious beliefs fit into this formula?
Well, first of all, every spirituality or religion I've studied, kind of separate from, kind of an agnostic set of beliefs or, pure humanism,
right,
has the sense of something good. They all have the sense of something bigger and something good, and that which is love-based and seeks to assist rather than to harm us. And so this particular tool, Spirit to Spirit, I, for instance, teach at a local college, and I get people from every religion in that college, and I am teaching this technique. I'm teaching things about past lives. I'm teaching about the soul. I'm teaching the spirit-to-spirit technique. I'm teaching about the power of grace. And I usually just sort of muddle the first class and say, I don't care what you call that greater spirit. You can call it Allah, Kuan Yin, goodness, the universe. I said, doesn't make any difference to me. That's up to you. It's up to the way you feel like you are supposed to be. If there's a God, which I believe there is, whatever we want to call it,
sure,
God's going to kind of help each person choose the path of religion or spirituality that's right for them in this walk. And so I respect all those paths. And Spirit to Spirit is really just saying, everybody has a goodness, and we can all call on goodness. So I've yet to have anybody ever argue with me, that the technique is too religious or it's not Christian enough or Islamic enough or whatever. I just haven't come across it.
You know, there's many people in today's society who believe that it's time for religion to go because religion in so many circles is the root of all evil instead of the path of righteousness.
I know. Isn't that a tough one?
It is.
And we go back to our discussion of history, that we had before the break, where part of somebody's past are the religions, of their ancestors as well.
Yeah.
So, I have a really good friend. For instance, I'll tell the story this way. I traveled with 3 girlfriends to the Isle of Man, which is an island in Scotland, over midsummers because the legend is that the great fairies walk the ancient stones on midsummers. So I am raised Christian. I traveled with a woman who's a strong Jewish person, a woman who was pagan, and another who is a Hindu. So, we kind of represented a lot of different paths. Now, and we were all going out there to see the fairies. I do have to tell you, however, we didn't see any fairies. We saw a lot of stoned hippies that night out at the stones. Not a fairy, however. But we all got along. We all know our history. We all know what we believe. And we had a great deal of respect for each other. But I think one other piece was that we all saw where we had similarities and, and we're okay with what our differences were. Even though my friend who's Jewish looked at me and said, you know what's wrong with you Christians? She said, your view of Mary is wrong. I'm a Jewish woman, and there ain't no Jewish woman, who's going to be as passive as the Catholic Church portrays Mary. So, we have a lot to learn from each other.
You see, my answer to her would have been, how do you know Mary was Jewish?
There you go. Though, what's interesting, Rob, that same trip, we were in Edinburgh. We had flown there.
Right.
And we were in a museum. I can't remember the name. It's really long. The Museum of All Religious Icons, et cetera, et cetera. So there's Aboriginal pieces there. There's Jewish pieces. There's Hindu pieces. There's Ganesh. And I was standing underneath a Salvador Dali painting of Jesus on a cross over the earth. And I literally felt him come out of the painting, come in me, look through the museum and say, isn't it wonderful how many ways there are to worship? So that taught me a lot, that experience.
That is a beautiful experience.
It was. And it was open-hearted. And religion, I would agree with you, and a lot of people, does have a way of reducing itself to dogma and legalism instead of love and care, which is the whole purpose of a religion.
That's right.
To help us take care of each other.
We've got about a minute and a half left before I have to go to my final break. But I believe that the 10 Commandments were the word for a group that was, sociologically developing. And even in today's society, if you follow those 10 simple rules, you can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong.
No,
they're rules for living. That's exactly right. And the very same type of commandments can be seen in the Vedic text, and others of the religions. It's just, they might be phrased differently, but they're about how we get along. Or as John Locke, who, was a philosopher that a lot of the Constitution is based on, in the United States would say the social compact. How to care for each other.
That's what life is all about, caring for each other. And, once again, using the Bible, the Lord is my shepherd. We all need a shepherd to take us, to guide us, to protect us. You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Great talking to you. Cyndi Dale is my special guest, Exo Nation. www.cindydale.com, and we'll both be back. As Craig just scared the heck out of me. We'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge, breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
That was kind of an energetic song. Did you feel the energy, Exo Nation? All right. No dancing in your car. Pull over to the side of the road if you're going to dance. Hey, you in the office in downtown Toronto. You in the office in New York City. Get off your desk. You're going to get yourself into trouble. Oh, my gosh. Cyndi Dale is our special guest. CyndiDale.com. And Cyndi, why is it so important that we all, including the average person, understands energy?
Because everything's made of energy. Our feelings, our thoughts, our bodies, our organs, those that we can see and those that we can't see, absolutely everything's made out of energy. So if you can understand what's happening on the subtle energy realm, in that world of the invisible and the immeasurable energy, you can help direct what's happening in your physical existence. Because it's the subtle stuff that provides the framework for that which, knock on wood, we can literally knock on and call real.
All right, so what do the chakras have to do with energy?
Well, chakras is an age-old word. It's a Hindu concept. There's other words for the concept in other languages and other cultures that are subtle energy organs. So just the same way you have physical organs, a liver, a gallbladder, a stomach, a heart, etc., you have subtle energy organs. But they accomplish more than your physical organs because the chakras, it's the same as spinning wheels of light, are literally able to convert physical energy, or the stuff that we can see and touch and smell, etc., into subtle energy, which is the more invisible but very, very kind of intelligent and powerful energy, and vice versa, convert subtle energy into physical energy. So it's chakras that are able to pick up on what somebody's feeling halfway around the world and let us know what's going on, or can potentially disappear a tumor. I mean, that's a great way to look at what a chakra's capability is. Let's take something physical, convert it into something that's invisible, and then you don't have it anymore.
Cyndi, do you have a favorite chakra? And if so, what and why?
I do. And my favorite chakra is the one that most people don't like, to be really honest.
Why?
I love the first chakra. I work with the 12 chakra system. Most people work with one of the many Hindu systems. There are chakra systems that have 2 chakras, 9 chakras, 42,000 chakras. I work with 12. I love the base one, the primal one that's in the hip area. We typically see it as red. It's physical. Because I do agree with, some of the great thinkers, and I'm following along, and kind of wishing to be kind of equivalent to them, like we all want to, is that we're spirits here having a physical existence. So how can we do that without the most physical and primal of chakras really operating for ourselves? And that's what the first chakra is. It's in the hip area, has to do with physicality, has to do with this world, it has to do with expressing through and with our bodies. This is the stuff that, for instance, I'm a mother. This is, to me, the mothering chakra. This is the physical one through which I can touch my kids, through which I can smell usually it's the toast that's burning, but hopefully, something that's in the kitchen working out as well. I love the first chakra because we're here to be physical.
How many different chakras are there?
Well, I work with 12, but I'll tell you about another book that I finished about a year ago called Llewellyn's Complete Book of Chakras. It's 1,200 pages. It's a great door jam. It'll squish any flower that you want, literally 1,200 pages. Took me 2 years to write. I'm still in the recovery phase. But, the coolest part, Rob, of that book is the second half of it features chakra systems from around the world. I had so much fun, kind of looking through the lens of other cultures and seers and oracles and healers across time. And so most of us in the West believe there are 7 chakras in the body. But honestly, different cultures have different ideas. I use 12 because it makes sense, because there's chakras on top of the head, there's chakras under the feet, there's chakras around us. So to me, symbolically, working with a system that has chakras around the body, not only in the chakra, talks about our greater self and says, we go beyond our skin. And so why not, from a subtle energy perspective, operate that way as well?
So if there are all these different chakras, how do we know which group of chakras are the right group and which ones aren't? Or are these all proper groups of chakras?
I know, isn't that the question?
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying half a dozen of this and 6 of another, right? So I think it's really important to understand that the way different cultures perceive the chakras comes from their framework. It largely comes from their spiritual value system, the land that they live on, what they see when they look out at the countryside or the desert or the jungle. And so every single chakra system is correct depending on the vantage point. It's a little bit like the old elephant, from the tail, from the trunk, from this and that and the other thing. And I really enjoyed writing that really big book and writing additional books about chakras, because I think ultimately each of us, to some extent, once we learn a system and maybe get exposed to a few different systems, we get to decide what best explains our lives to ourselves. And before break, we talked about love.
Yes.
What kind of system best allows us to embody love? And really, if you're going to reduce the chakras and say which ones you have to have, in a system, you have to have the base, which is the physical, wherever you put it, under the feet, in the hips, wherever. You need to have something on the top because that's the spiritual self.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to have a chakra in the heart because that's the way that we relate to what's around us and to what we're receiving from the divine. So those are the three most important areas that I think we need to work with from a chakra point of view.
Having had the opportunity of speaking to many energy workers over the years, over the past 25 years doing this job, and today talking to you, it amazes me that it took so long for this knowledge to work its way over to North America.
Oh, I know. It really didn't make its way until the 1900s, not, in a really strong way, except in some of the research that I've done. I've looked at the Hopi, the Cherokee, the Lakota clans, Mesoamerica, the Mayans, the Aztecs, and most of those systems had chakras. They may have called them something else, eyes in the body, or this or that, or spirits in the body, or whatever it is. But they had chakra systems. The Hopi Indians, for instance, as an example, had, depending on how you look at it, 6 or 7 chakras. So the knowledge was here in North America, but those of us who came over, usually from Europe or maybe forced over from Africa, or other places, we weren't coming from places that were, kind of populated with this thinking. So we had to wait for the East to wake us up so that we could remember the knowledge that was in the land already.
Yeah, it seems that the further we go into the future, the more we discover that we've already known in the past.
Yeah, I know, and we're still remembering, aren't we?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, some of the stories that I hear, whether they come from mystics, or some of the research that only floats in through the internet, or even some of the scientific research about light and healing with light, different kinds of near-infrared light and blue light, or healing with sound. There's bandages now that use sound to send the medicine through the skin into the organs. I mean, we've used light and sound and all this, kind of knowledge for thousands and thousands of years. We just keep going through these dark ages, don't we? Whether we call them the dark age or not. we just seem to kind of have a big eraser or something that we wipe things out and then we have to re-remember it again.
It's just like the batteries that they're finding in ancient archaeological digs. Like, hello, we've had batteries before? What the hell took us so long to remember them?
Yeah, and, the Hindu and some of the ancient tracks, talked about flying machines.
That's right.
And big white lights. And if you read the Old Testament a certain way when they talk about the Ark of the covenant or the tabernacle, yeah, that stuff sounds like some sort of really fancy fission or fusion or something, that we've harnessed energy in other ways that we've, to some extent, yet to rediscover. Like the maglev trains, levitation. Well, of course we used to use magnetic energies and levitate stones. We're able to do that with trains right now.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective, I think, to connect the stories and the legends of the past with what we're doing or reinventing today and look at the similarities.
I think one of the biggest problems that we have as a society in general, and I'm not talking about the indigenous groups who, in my opinion, are way ahead of the game, is that they look in the past. They keep the past alive because they realize that in order to understand where we are today and how to progress into a productive future, you have to understand the past. You have to know where you went wrong. And yet, here in North America, in this technological age of ours, we seem to forget the most simplistic things in life.
We do. The qualities, the principles, the spiritual laws. I like also studying, amongst indigenous peoples, taking from, their ways what I can, or at least reading about it. And the universal principles are the same. Protect the innocent, respect the earth, understand that we, kind of what we hold in our hearts is basically going to impact other people. I mean, there's some very easy concepts that I think most of the time kids are born knowing, right?
Sure.
And it's the old what you knew in kindergarten kind of thing, or even before kindergarten, you know, and we do seem to divorce ourselves from our history. I think, I don't know what you think, Rob, but I think that a lot of times adults do that because sometimes there's so much in our history that's painful that we just skim over it, and it's easy if we do that on the personal level to do that on the collective level as well.
I agree, and it seems that we as adults bring baggage with us from one day to the next instead of learning how to realize what the baggage is and just say, okay, fine, I've learned, let's get rid of the baggage. Or how many adults in today's world have a failure and they give up instead of looking at a failure, as I have done through my life, as a learning lesson? You know,
exactly. And like you're saying, what didn't work, and let's try something else.
Exactly.
I mean, well, I can't remember how many zeros are on it, but Edison invented, 300 filaments, or tried 300 filaments before he got one to work for the light bulb.
Yep.
And, you know, I have a 17-year-old son who's really doing amazing as a baseball pitcher right now, got a scholarship. But you know what? A year ago, he came to me and he said, you know, Mom, I want to be a baseball player, and I'm not very good yet. So I need to learn how to be good. And he has spent, I've funded it, an entire year working really hard. And he had to start over from scratch with how to put his foot down differently than he used to how to twist his body. So you could say that he started that as a complete failure, right? Or did he?
No,
or did he?
No, that's not being a failure.
Exactly.
Because if he was
No,
a failure,
it's not.
He wouldn't accept the challenge, recognize what he was doing wrong, say, I need help to improve it. And he's going forward. To me, that's success.
That's right. I totally agree. Yep. And every time he learned a new technique, he'd go out there, and it would take him a while to get it, and he'd get it.
Stand by, dear friend. You and I have to take a break. Exo Nation, Cyndi Dale is our special guest. She is a world-renowned speaker, author, teacher, and scholar, and we're talking to Cyndi about the Little Book of Chakras and Subtle Energy Techniques. Her website is cyndidale.com. That's CYNDIDALE.com. This is The X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back, everyone. Cyndi Dale is our special guest, www.cyndidale.com. That is CYNDIDALE.com. She is the author of The Little Book of Chakras and Subtle Energy Techniques. And I'd like to thank Vanessa at Llewellyn for helping make this interview possible. If somebody wants to study subtle energies or study the chakras, what's their best way of going about that?
You know, that's a great question. There's always teachers in every area. Mm-hmm. Reiki, healing touch, psychic development. I'd be careful with the last grouping, however. I'm a real big believer in boundaries.
Right.
The first time I took a psychic development class, the teacher just said connect with a dead person, and me, being a good student, right, the A student, just says, I want to connect with a dead person. And within 2 seconds, I've got this creepy energy coming in my neck. And I said, who the, what are you? And I heard an answer which freaked me out even more. And it said, I am Tom. I am a sailor. And I said, I don't want Tom the sailor in my body. So be careful with whom you study with, that they're going to respect, kind of your right to set up boundaries and decide, kind of what you want to do with your subtle energy or not. There's tons of good books out there. There's downloads. I have a book called the Intuition Guidebook that's helpful for people who struggle with psychic boundary issues. But it's honestly everywhere right now. I think just, search your heart, for what approach is going to be best for you and why you want to learn it and go forward that way.
Something that I don't think gets talked enough about are psychic vampires. And people have said, what the heck is a psychic vampire? Man, they're the people who just suck the energy right out of you. So how do you prevent people from, that person you meet and they are so needy and you can actually feel the energy draining from your body? How do we deal, or how do we protect our energy from these kind of people?
That's a great question, and I know those people. I think
So do
we
I.
all know those
Yeah.
people. And if there's a proof that they're subtle energy, it's that we get vampired. So I think it's really important to understand what's happening. We don't end at the skin. And our electromagnetic energy, the sounds that come off of our body, our subtle energy just keeps going, like a football field away. But we're also interconnected to anything or anyone we've ever been connected to. So we're sort of wide open, which is slightly scary when you think about it. And so somebody with certain types of programs or neediness, or the training from their childhood systems that say they get to take somebody's energy, right? That's how they survive. That's how they get their sense of value. They don't stop at the skin. Their energy just reaches in, takes what they want, and off they go with it. And you can feel it. So you can make decisions about what's going to happen with your subtle energy, right? With your subtle boundaries, with your chakras or your auric fields or whatever words you want to use. I like the word boundaries.
Yes.
You can decide, hey, I want my boundaries to only let in what's good for me, to only send out messages that are truthful about me, that are for my highest good, and ain't nobody getting in to see the wizard. That it's just not happening. So there's a lot about the power of decision making that I think is really important. I know the buzzword these days is intention. Set your intention.
Oh, yes.
There's intention experiments. I like the word decision. Because I don't know about you, but when Cyndi sets an intention, it's a little bit like trying to do something or thinking, yeah, it'd be nice if it goes this way. When Cyndi makes a decision, that's it. So you can decide you're not letting anybody take your energy. And your auric field, that's what they call the energy fields around the body, will respond accordingly. So it's also important to take, I hate to say it this way, and it sounds kind of cold, but to take responsibility for people stealing your energy. Because as soon as we say, oh, it's them doing it, which they are doing it, we put the power in them instead of us to make a decision not to give it away.
With all the cell towers, all the Wi-Fis, and all the other technological gizmos that we're all being inundated with each and every day, how does that affect our subtle energies fields?
I think that's a great question because it literally goes straight through us. I mean, that's subtle energy. We can't see it, but it's real, and it is to some extent measurable. It marches straight through. And so a lot of people are really reactive to all that EMF or, the artificial, internet and cell phones and this and that and the other thing. I fell prey to it a few years ago, and I was sick all the time. And then I sat down and I thought, and I got all those gizmos that you can put on your furnace and your electricity, and I unplugged everything. And then I thought, Cyndi, this is just energy. Why are you giving it more power than you give than people's energy? So again, just decide your energy field is not going to let in what's not good for you. And I've actually been just fine. it's interesting we bring this up because we talked in the last segment, too, about kids.
Yes.
And a lot of the kids coming in are very pure. They're very spirit-based. You know, they might measure as slightly Asperger's or ADHD or this or that, but to some extent, they're so pure, they don't have really strong energetic fields. So they can be really affected by all this EMF. I met a super cool acupuncturist down in Charlotte who says that he's finding that a lot of kids are allergic to EMF, and it throws out their livers.
Oh, wow.
And so I know, he's literally clearing their body of their allergies, which of course is like an autoimmune histamine reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to train their bodies not to react to it and to block out what's not good for them and let pass through, you know, what isn't going to harm them. So it really literally just doesn't touch them or impact them. So I kind of like thinking of it as treating an allergy, you know, this EMF stuff where, you know, we don't want to let it in.
Right.
And or we don't want to react to it.
But if energy acts with energy, we know a microwave is an energy. We know that a microwave is a very dangerous energy. So how does that energy, the microwave energy, how does that energy react with the subtle energies that we have in our body?
Well, it usually it's a lower energy. Mm-hmm. And so from the continuum of EMF, there's like really high energy, you know, frequencies, et cetera. Like gamma is way, way up there, which can be dangerous or helpful, by the way.
Sure.
And microwave is lower. So it, from a purely physical point of view, microwave energies really impact, you know, kind of our feet and the energies of our connection to the earth. So microwave and radio waves and some of that, but the real low microwaves in particular, are literally going to unground us.
Gotcha.
They're going to disconnect us from the earth. So we have to compensate for that. You know, we have to intentionally go through the microwave, you know, or visualize ourselves connecting deeper and deeper into the planet, or wear magnets in our shoes, or make sure that we get outside a lot more often. You know, so depending on the kind of person you are, you want to compensate. But that depends on your personality, too. I'm a very physical person, so I have to go outside. I get up every morning at 5 and I take the dogs to a park. I drive there and I run them. And then I'm good to go for the rest of the day, and I'm not impacted by almost anything. So I have to do that. You know, other people are a little more meditative, and so they kind of go through the microwave energy, send it away, transform it, see themselves visually, psychically connecting into the earth. So it is, like you're saying, really important to understand what's coming at us so we can devise a plan for getting along with it, or at least being untainted by it.
Cyndi, we've got about 2 minutes left. What are your final thoughts for the listening audience of the X-Zone Nation?
I think, you know, get into energy. I love it. You know, it's so fascinating to find out what the ancients knew about energy, about chakras, about spirit, about spirituality, you know, about talking with the animals and the birds and how we're all interconnected. I mean, to me, everything is about subtle energy. It's about what we can't see that's impacting us, you know, and how we can start to, without getting paranoid, right? We don't want to get paranoid. How can we unearth what it is that we're not in touch with, you know, so that we become more loving, more compassionate, and more clear about who we are and who we're not?
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Does.
Where can people get your book, Cyndi?
You know, they're all on Amazon. I've got like 20 plus books, and I can't remember them all. They're all on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I know. They sell really well on the East Coast, on the West Coast. I'm in the Midwest. People aren't quite as into chakras yet in, you know, the Midwest, but it's getting there in the United States. Amazon has everything, though. They really do.
Cyndi, I want to thank you so much for joining us. A great pleasure. Continued success, and the very best to your son and his baseball career.
Thank you. I'm excited for him.
So are we. Keep us informed, will you, Cyndi?
I will.
All right, X-Zone Nation, Cyndi Dale has been our guest this hour. www.cindydale.com. That's www.cindydale.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. The X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 11 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and our fine family of broadcast affiliates around the world. Don't forget, if you'd like to be part of UFO discovery or disclosure history, visit www.cubesat.tech. We'll be back. Don't go away.